All right, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to go over the USAS Proration Utility tool, which can be used for multiple reasons. One of which I'm going to demonstrate would be with workers' comp. So you can find this PowerPoint on our meetings and trainings page. I put it there yesterday at the end of the day, so you might have not had a chance to see it, but it's there. But I'm going to start on the PowerPoint and then go into the system. So basically, oh, and before I start, ask any questions if you have any. Stop me or put it in the chat. I'm not always good about looking at the chat, but um, just nudge me. So the proration utility is going to be a word I'm going to trip up on today, I guess. Allows the user to generate a spreadsheet where you can enter the amount, like an expense, to be prorated, and the tool will distribute that expense equally across your selected accounts. And basically, how you select those accounts is by using an account filter. And then the users can download that spreadsheet and use it in any of their ways that they need to. But they can also map that spreadsheet with account code mapping, map it to like the benefit account. And like in our example, we'll go over is the workers' comp expense, and we'll map it to a benefit account. So we'll go through all those examples or all those tools that go along with the proration utility. And then, like I said, there's several usage of this tool. One is the workers' compensation premium that you'll pull against the wage accounts and then map it to the benefit accounts. But the districts could also use it for insurance costs too. And they don't always have to prorate it against the wage accounts. They could also just set up an account filter to use whatever they want to prorate against. So let's go into the USAS system. And all of these tools is under the utilities menu. So looking at the proration utility, you can see where you choose the account filter. These are what the options look at, but we'll get in more detail in a minute. Um, Sorry, I had my heater on. So this is where you would choose the account filter, which you would have to set up first. So we're going to do that as well. And then once you create this, the spreadsheet will be down below, and then you would use the account code mapping, which would also would need to be set up ahead of time before this part. You can also see this run by appropriation, which you can check mark and just keep that in the back of your mind because I'll point that out when we're setting up the account filters and the account code mapping. So that's the proration utility that we'll come back to. But first, like I said, you're going to have to run or set up the account filter or utilize one that's been used before. And again, I'm in an anonymized district, so some of these account filters don't make sense. But it's going to be similar to the districts, I would imagine, with a grid full of all these account filters. So since this presentation is kind of short and kind of easy, I threw an extra tip on how to look up using the advanced query on this grid, but you can use it in any grids in the USAS application. And this is just a way to filter down more. So what I'm going to use it for is I have this long grid of account filters. Do I have one out there that I have already set up that used the wage accounts? So the object code of one somewhere in the 100s. So to quickly find it, I would do object equals one, any of the 100s. Now again, you can save these. And I actually have one saved, which is going to look just like the one that we just set up. But once you apply it, you see the two account filters that include this. So that's an easy tip. And again, next year I can go back and just pull these up. This can also be useful when you're trying to find a federal grant query. You set up your fund, or just like we had before with the objects. You can pull in anything and save. Once you apply it, you see the filters. So I just wanted to kind of throw that tip in. Um, we'll hide those and go back to the workers' comp. You can also just remember your filter and filter from the grid. So looking at the ones that I have already set up or that we could create, it would just be the TI of O2, which are essentially the budget encumbrance accounts, and the object of 100s with read-only access. So that when we use this in the proration utility, it'll pull all accounts for the 100s. If you're going to use that button on that proration utility menu that says run by appropriations, you're going to have to set up an account filter with the TI of 01. Here I set it up the same with the wages with read-only access and named it, but it's the TI that's different. And you get that from the AOS manual, USAS manual, where the O1s are the appropriation accounts. That's the only difference. When if we created one, it looks the same as me just editing one. But when you're saving the name, you cannot put workers apostrophe S comp because the account filters cannot have an apostrophe in account filter's name. So just keep that in mind. So you see in my example, you see workers comp without the apostrophe. So then we have that set up. And now, in order to get those wage accounts to post to a purchase order on the benefit accounts, I would next set up my mapping. Account code mapping still found under the utilities menu. And I got two set up. Um, again, if you create one, I'll show you the examples first, and then we'll create one. This one is essentially what this does is take any objects with 1 and a digit to put it over to this account, which is the certified employees for workers' comp. So this is where I'm getting it from the USAS manual. But my filter is anything with the first two digits is 1, which is essentially the certificated wages. And then the next line would be the 1, which would be the non-certificated wages, which is what I show here. Going to a benefit account that's also associated with certified and classified account codes. Now, again, this is just an example. The districts can do their own mapping as they want, but I wanted to show you an example and how I chose this way. It's not the right way, but because there's also another example here where I broke it down by function code and left all the objects as 100s, but I still kind of split it out between classified and certified. And you can do that with the function codes because the function codes essentially are 1000s are the instruction, 2000s are the support, which are classified. Well, I don't know if that's totally true, but the point here is you can set up, the district can set up their account code mapping any way they want. So another example would be, um, and this is, I just pushed create. We're going to set one up in real time. You can, currently it's only set up for the expenditure account. And you click on the plus sign. And what was I going to give an example? I think it was all 100s to just 260. And I think that was my example. We'll see if I have that account set up in this. And you click save and it saves. All right, so, and the reason why you again use the mapping is to apply it to the benefits. When you're doing creating the purchase order CSV spreadsheet map to the benefit accounts, if there's no mapping chosen, the PO can still be created. It'll just use what was created when you performed the proration utility and used your account filter that brought in the wages. So then your purchase order is going to have the wage accounts rather than mapping them to the benefit accounts. I hope that makes sense. Also, when you're mapping, you can these buttons, this will insert a line, this will move the line up, and this will copy the line down so you can edit it and also delete. I forgot to mention those icons, which we're all familiar with, but I didn't want to take it for granted. Also, when you're setting it up, there are symbols that you can use instead of, like I have here is the apostrophe, or sorry, it's the asterisk. The asterisk will match any value or combination of values. So when I used it for the 100s, it's going to capture all of the 100s. The percentage sign used, I believe, in this one would capture anything in that third position. So anything with a 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Um, and then you can also use a number sign that would also match any number from the 1 through 9 in a specified position. And that at sign would match any character A through Z in a specified position. But most likely you're going to use both either the asterisk or the percentage sign. All right, so we set up the mapping and the count filter. So let's perform and use the Proration Utility tool. Here they have a couple options of pulling the data calendar year to date, fiscal year to date, or month to year to date. I'm going to let it go to calendar year. This is where you choose your filter. And they're in alphabetical order. If I choose the filter with a TI of 02 instead of the appropriation account, but I have that checked, and you select create, I'll show you what happens. You get the circular reference error, which isn't very informative, but basically it doesn't know what to do. So it's circling around and can't pull in the data because the filter isn't set up for the appropriation accounts, and yet you're asking it to run by appropriation. So I'll uncheck that and rerun it again. You do have a choice to name the file if you so choose. I'm not going to. And then once you create, you'll see what happens other than this error. And I'll show you one with the appropriation, but it's the same process. So then the next step would be put the amount that you want to be prorated. So the amount on the workers' comp bill or the insurance cost bill that you want to prorate against the wage accounts. So I'm just going to pull up a fictitious number. And as soon as I tab off of that, these amounts are going to calculate. So for each wage account that there were wages calendar year to date, it's going to populate a prorated amount. And then the prorated amount is going to add up to be 755. I should have picked an easier number. $7,555. And the wages are going to, you could total the wages too. So you see how that populated. If I took this and totaled all of that, it would add up within at least a penny difference to this amount. So at this point, the user could download this file and use the spreadsheet for whatever they would like. It's just going to look like a spreadsheet, but I'll open it up and show you. It's going to just look like the grid. But at this point, you can also create the POCSV. So once I click that, it pops the screen up. And this is where you would choose your account mapping. You can enter a purchase order number to make it a specific number, or you can let it default to the next available one. Same with the vendor. You can choose one, or you can select no vendor, which will then be a blank vendor PO for a multi-vendor purchase order. I do have one set up, so I'll choose it. And then the date has to be in the open period, which this is in December. So then you click on download, and whatever was in the mapping should be in the spreadsheet. And of course, you want to check the spreadsheet before you import it into a purchase order, or that would be my suggestion and what I would do. Because there could be, I'm just looking at these object benefit accounts to make sure there was no wage accounts in there. There's probably an easier way filtering, but so I think I used the wrong account filter, but my point, I was going to show you that there was one account with still a wage account of 171 or 139, I forget which one, which at this point the user could correct here without going through what we just did. Just correct the account here after reviewing and verifying the accounts are okay. And then save it. This file looks good. They were all in the 200s. So then I'll cancel out of this pop-up window. I do have it saved on my computer. So the next step would be go to the purchase order menu to turn this into a purchase order with benefit account charges. So this would be like any import purchase order with the CSV file process, but we have that file created, so we will choose it. And then when I select load, it should give me if it was successful or the errors along with a file. It'll pop up right here. So one record was loaded. The file will, in this case, since there was no error, will say no errors, records loaded. But if there was an error, it would indicate why, like maybe the account code didn't exist. Because remember, sometimes wage accounts are very detailed down to the OPU or the IL. So if those are not mapped to more of a general benefit account and that specific benefit account doesn't exist, you could get an error, if that makes sense. So there's my PO, which now can be processed into a payment, and you can see all the accounts were populated on the purchase order based on the account, which was prorated based on the account filter. Now, remember I said that one file you should review and see if if all the wage accounts matched or were in the 200s. I'll show you an example. So this purchase order was created and some of the accounts were mapped to the 200s, but if oops, there is one, oops, that's not it. Actually, I know it was, I swear it was this one. Again, the point was if you don't have it updated on your spreadsheet and you import it into the purchase order, it will reflect a wage account and not the mapped benefit account. I can't find the example, but that's what happens when you're live. So to demonstrate the using that to run by appropriation, you'll also see that it narrows it down a lot smaller because appropriation accounts are more general. So we'll go ahead and choose the calendar year and select the account filter and the run by appropriation. And in this case, I'm just going to put 7,500 and make it easy. Click create. And it's even, what happened here? I must have hit something with my finger. As soon as I click off of this, it'll populate the amounts. It's not as long because these accounts are more general. Again, you can download, you could create the PO. This time I will choose the one that we created. I'll let it default to a purchase order and I'll pick no vendor. And again, you'll want to verify this file to make sure it picked up all your 200s. And we set it up to be a general 260 instead of like specific account of certified and classified benefit account. 260 is like the top of those in the USAS manual. So those are all benefit accounts. Thus, we can go to our purchase order grid and import the purchase order. And then the rest of the process of invoicing the purchase order And creating the disbursement would be the same. Okay, I had an error on that one. So, and I was multitasking. I read this chat message. I also think there might be a feedback issue with those pennies off on the PO, if I recall. Okay, so in this case, the error is this account didn't exist. So there's an example of the errors where you would go back and either change the spreadsheet or, well, this isn't the right one, or redo the process. But in the PO that we did create, again, you would just invoice it. It's a normal process and make the disbursement. That is really all that's to the proration utility, which includes setting up the account filter and account code mapping and importing the purchase order. So does anybody have any questions? I hope districts use this. I don't know if they use it for anything outside of workers' comp, but they could. All right. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat. I do hope you guys all enjoy your friends and family through the holiday season and into the new year. Um, our next Fridays with Fiscal is not until January 9th. So be safe, happy holidays, and we'll see you next year. Bye. Merry Christmas.